Why overturning Roe v. Wade would be a disaster for conservatives. Those are the results of a new ABC News/Washington Post poll, and the findings are consistent with previous polling on the issue. Despite political treatment of abortion as a contentious partisan issue, the truth is that America is a pro-choice nation. And if the anti-abortion movement gets their way and the Supreme Court overturns Roe, the Republican Party and the Supreme Court itself will have a lot of angry Americans to contend with. Too often, American politicians and media outlets talk about abortion as a political issue or a front in the culture war, and not a matter of basic health care that women the world over have been availing themselves of for many centuries. The self-defined pro-life movement and their representatives in the Republican Party very much benefit from redefining abortion from common medical treatment into a partisan wedge issue. In doing so, they radically change the framing, and may even convince significant swaths of the public that their position enjoys far more support than it actually does. That keeps the narrative around abortion as one about both sides of a political drama rather than a fundamental question of health care access that enables women's physical safety and personal freedom.
According to this latest poll, even a slim majority of Republicans and conservatives, and 75% of Americans generally, believe that abortion should be a private decision between a woman and her doctor. Just 1 in 5 Americans, a small minority, want to see the decision of whether or not to have an abortion regulated by law. Majorities support abortion rights across racial, gender, regional, and educational lines. Almost half of white evangelicals, the most conservative voting bloc in the country, say abortion should be between a woman and her doctor instead of regulated by law, and 62% of Catholics favor upholding Roe v. Wade. Only about a quarter of Americans strongly support state laws that make it more difficult for clinics to run. This much is clear: many of the most influential anti-abortion groups are also anti-contraceptive, and if they succeed in outlawing abortion, contraception could be next. There is also the basic fact that Roe was decided based on the precedent set by a 1965 case, Griswold v. Connecticut, in which the Supreme Court found a constitutional right to sexual privacy for American adults and legalized contraception for married couples. From that case sprung Roe and others, including cases legalizing consensual sex between adults regardless of gender and establishing a right to same-sex marriage. The primary right-wing legal argument against Roe is that a constitutional right to sexual privacy doesn't exist. If the Supreme Court overturns Roe on that basis, it's hard to imagine a universe in which the rights to contraception and marriage equality couldn't be similarly challenged. Close to 1 in 4 American women will have an abortion in her lifetime, according to the Guttmacher Institute. According to the last available numbers, almost 2/3 of American women of childbearing age were using some form of contraception, and 99% had used at least one contraceptive method in the past. But this is also a lesson for journalists and other media makers: abortion rights are not broadly controversial. This isn't a debate, it is about an authoritarian minority seeking to force a majority to comply with its views. Americans support abortion rights. Americans understand that abortion is a private medical decision that should be between a woman and her doctor, not a woman and the state. And while too many Americans have been shamefully inert when it comes to supporting abortion rights, they will not shrug it off if those rights are taken away.
Thank you for watching. Please subscribe